Chapter 4.
A Walk in the Woods. The Find. Questions. Wanda took pride in the fact that if she wanted to go and do something, there wasn't a damn thing anybody could do about it. Not that anyone minded her going for a nice long walk through the woods not too far from the house where she lived. But no one could trouble her either, and of that there was a lot of. If Kaya wasn't asking her about something meaningless, Ree was causing enough trouble for her to fix in 100 lifetimes. Sometimes, Wanda just needed a break. She enjoyed the natural beauty of the planet, the lush green forests, the looming mountains in the distance, the indigenous animals that ran around seemingly oblivious to everything around them. There were not too many planets like this one in this part of the galaxy, and that was what intrigued Wanda the most. She never understood how a planet so far away from the rest of civilized space could have such natural planetary wonders. It was as if someone had intentionally hidden it away from those who were looking for such things. It wasn't until the intergalactic ambassador had stumbled upon this planet by accident that attempts at introducing it to the Space Union were attempted. To Wanda, that was the biggest mistake in the galaxy. Not only were the people of this planet not ready, but they threw Kaya and Ree into prison numerous times for disturbing the peace. It was only under extreme chance that Wanda had been watching the news one night when she saw the two of them on the television. It made for a nice little media circus at the time, two crazy women who claimed to be from outer space. Wanda knew she was at least obligated to go in and retrieve them from the journalistic onslaught. Now, here they all were, a former teacher, a former A student, and a, person of challenge. The waft of fresh pine air filled Wanda's senses as nothing could damper a day like this one. Looking over the view again, Wanda observed the trail she was following as it meandered ahead toward a small clearing. Tall strands of green grass loomed high on either side of the path, bordering the trail as it led to the open space beyond. The myriad of pine and maple trees created a natural skyline around the clearing, giving the sense of being surrounded by giants, peering down on those of lower stature. The pocketed confines gave Wanda a sense of seclusion, a place where the large, noisy world outside could not touch those within its haven. The small wildlife sprang into action the moment she entered the open field. A pair of birds chased each other from one tree to another, dancing among the higher, springy limbs. A butterfly flitted gracefully over a pair of legs sticking out of the grass on the side. The little winged creature bobbed through the air as if it were struggling to reach its inevitable destination. Wanda lifted her gaze to the mountains rising high in the far background, touching a part of the sky that few things could do naturally. The serenity of what lay before her led her to believe that everything was in its place. After walking ahead for a few steps, Wanda adjusted the zipper on her baggy grey sleeveless windbreaker, which hung low over her olive cargo shorts. Reaching into her inner pocket, she pulled out a small, portable global positioning device. Wanda always got a kick out of the simplistic yet handy devices Earthlings would come up with every now and then. If it wasn't for the fact that she was from another world, she would have been more than happy to help them out with the discovery of new and exciting technologies. But, given her current situation, it was a far cry from the reason she had come here in the first place. Wanda's forehead cringed in thought. She had forgotten what it was that she had come out here to do. She was so caught up in the wonders before her that her mind had lost itself in the beauty of nature. But there was one thing, one detail that began to buzz about in her ever-moving thought patterns. A small detail began to grasp her attention as she suddenly realized that something here did not belong. Her heart thudded, sending frightful grips that seized her body. Her light emerald eyes shot over to the side as nervous instinct took over. Wanda rushed over to the pair of legs in the grass as she looked in horror at what she saw. It was a man, but she could not tell much more with him face down. To her immediate relief, he did not look hurt or debilitated in any way. She reached down to check his vital signs. He was alive. His breathing appeared to be normal. Carefully, Wanda reached down and gently pushed on his shoulder. "Hey, are you all right?" The man stirred for a second as his shoulder quivered from her touch, but nothing more. Wanda sighed in contemplation. She ran her fingers through her short blonde hair, ignoring the nervous itch that began to irritate her shoulder blades. Looking around to make sure no one was watching, Wanda pulled out a small device from her satchel. Years ago, Wanda had come to find that Earthlings are fascinated by gadgets and gizmos. It was hard at times trying to use her real tools without drawing too much attention to herself. Someone was bound to ask her about it, or even worse, ask her where they could get one themselves. She withdrew from her pocket a mini computer terminal that she had borrowed from the Institute before leaving her home planet of Alterra. Mostly she used it to catalogue Earth creatures, people, structures, or just about anything else that stood out as interesting. Running her fingers over the tiny little touchscreen, Wanda switched the device to its biological functions as the light effects on the small screen began monitoring the man's vital signs. Everything appeared normal, except for a small light off to the side, which began to flash red, catching her attention. It was not the biological screen, but the space anomaly tab that was blinking. She turned to the page as the whole screen suddenly lit up red. Wanda scanned the area with the device, but it was not the area that was of concern. Pointing the device back down, she noticed that the man was covered in space-time residue. "No way!" she gasped, staring at the man on the ground. Wanda bent down again, trying to wake him, this time more forcefully. The man moaned, slightly stirring once again. Putting her arms underneath him, she pushed with all of her might as she was just able to turn him over. Wanda was a small person, barely 5 foot tall, maybe 100 pounds, but she still managed to turn the good-sized man over. She blew out an exertive breath after the small feat, feeling good about being small yet strong. After catching her breath, Wanda took a step back to get a better look at the stranger. His brown hair was cut short, forming a solid border around his young face. Maybe mid to late 20s, she guessed. Wanda had become rather good at telling someone's Earth age after all her years of studied observations, even if they had a little work done, or so they liked to call it. The man was well built. His arms were defined, and his torso appeared to be cut perfectly with his black shirt and dark slacks. Wanda's cheeks turned a slight blush. He, at least, appeared to be someone who liked a healthy lifestyle just like hers. Touching his forehead, he felt cool but nothing worth concern, as his temperature appeared near normal. Everything checked out, but she did notice the interesting colour illuminating his head. Some beings had called such colouring auras, but Wanda never believed in the spiritual side of things. She worshipped facts. Numbers were her idols, and science was her ideal. Back in the science world, such colourings were also called, ironically, auras, but for purely scientifically reasonable, non-religious reasons, so she believed. The man began to move around on his own, his eyes drifting open as he looked straight up into the sky. Of course, blue sky was not the first thing one should try to focus on when awaking. His eyes rolled around wildly, trying to get their bearings on where he was. Now, take it easy," eased Wanda. His blue eyes shifted over to her. "You shouldn't be napping in the woods like that. It's not safe." She knew it wasn't any good teasing him like that, but she just couldn't resist. The man started to sit up, looking at her with a strange glare. His eyes held no fear, but rather a strong disbelief for what he was looking at. He continued to stare at her, giving Wanda an uneasy feeling. "Are you all right?" she asked as she brushed some of the grassy debris from his shirt. The man began to speak, but nothing came out. A second later, It was heard.
Wanda?
The sound was weak, as if he had just come out of the desert from a day-long walk. Wanda pulled up her device one last time to recheck for anything else that appeared to be out of the ordinary. "That's right, I'm here to help you." She jerked her eyes away from the monitor. The shock of him saying her name gave her an eerie chill. How do you know my name?" she asked, her nerves shuddering. The man tried to reach out to her, but his eyes began to close again. Wanda grabbed his shoulders, giving him a shake. "Oh no, you're not falling asleep on me now," she warned, trying to keep him conscious a little longer. The man's eyes fluttered open once more and then fell closed again. Wanda grabbed his arm and pulled. With all of her might, and a little help from his legs, she got him off the ground to a standing position. The man leaned over, giving the look that he might fall back down the opposite way. She put his arm around her smaller frame, turned them both around, and started to lead him back down the trail. His body weighed down upon her, making Wanda groan with every other step. She kept watching him, making sure he would not fall asleep again, as her mind could just picture the two of them tumbling down the rest of the way. "I'm usually not this straightforward about taking guys home with me," she breathed, trying to keep his attention on what she was doing. He appeared awake enough to listen, but he was not paying much attention to her. They swooned and staggered as Wanda tried her best to lead him forward. It was hard for her to keep him steady, she being almost a foot shorter and outweighed by at least 100 pounds. But that still did not keep her from trying to help. "Boy, if anyone saw us now, they'd probably say we were drunk or something," she groaned between steps. Her body began to stiffen under the pressure of his weight. Desperation pleaded with her sense of reason about how she was going to get him back to the house. Firming up her pride, Wanda looked forward, trying not to think about the last 2 miles of forest path that still lay before them. Kaya wiped off the last dish as she continued to prepare dinner. If there was one positive experience she had found while stranded on Earth, was the countless selection of foods that this planet had to offer. When they had first arrived, Ree had discovered the fascinating trait of fast food. It was the most wonderful concept either of them had ever encountered before. Given their limited funding from the IGA, it seemed to them like a reasonable choice to go to the local fast food restaurant and dine on the low-cost meals. 3 weeks and £14 later, that they soon realised that maybe it wasn't the best selection for a healthy lifestyle. Kaya spent most of her time after that studying the better cooking techniques that Earthlings use to prepare meals. After many hours of watching food channels, reading dozens of cookbooks, and flipping through every homemaker's magazine she could find, Kaya started making more of their meals at home. And since Wanda had miraculously come back into their lives again, Kaya had to hone in on her skills, for Wanda did not eat meat. Kaya checked the fish on the stove one last time before preparing to put the vegetables to cook. A small smile escaped her. She rather enjoyed preparing the last meal of the day. It was one of the few things in life that made her happy. "Ree!" she called out. There was no answer. Her smile faded. She could not bear to think of the trouble her cousin might be causing. The front door opened and closed with a slam. Kaya's idle curiosity made her peek around the corner. "I was hoping you were still in the—" She stopped, her eyes staring at the ragged pair in the entryway. Wanda huffed, trying to catch her breath and support the stranger at the same time. "Kaya, couch, please, hurry," she blurted exhaustively as the stranger was beginning to topple over her. Kaya ran to the two, grabbing at the man before he fell over. She helped him over to the couch, giving Wanda the chance to expel a grunt of relief from her smaller form. "Oh my God!" cried Wanda. "I didn't think we were going to make it back." She bent over, trying to gather her strength, relieved that the burden was gone. Kaya stood there, baffled by the scene. "What's going on? Who is he?" Wanda shook her head as she drew in a long, deep breath before speaking. "I have no idea," she finally replied. "I found him lying in the forest all alone. It doesn't appear that he's from around here." Kaya stared at him, horrified by Wanda's decision-making. "And you brought him here? Why?" Wanda shook her head. "I have my reasons," she replied. "Besides, he seems harmless enough." Wanda looked at the man again. His eyes lulled about, trying to fight the sleepiness, but he was not succeeding. "Is he going to be all right?" "I don't know," Wanda admitted. "Self-teleportation isn't something natural. There's no telling what may happen to someone who is unprotected." Kaya's eyes grew wider, giving Wanda an odd glance. "He teleported here by himself?" she bellowed, impressed by the idea. "Told you he's not from around here," Wanda reiterated while stretching out her weary body. "It's as good of a guess as I can come up with, at least until I can run some better scans on him with my equipment downstairs, that is." Kaya cringed. If there was one thing she remembered about Wanda's classes, was her affinity for testing new devices on unsuspecting people. Wanda expelled a huge sigh as she felt her strength slowly returning. She noticed the man look up to her as he tried to say something. She reached for his arm as she watched him straining for the words, but nothing was coming out. "Maybe I should get him some water," suggested Kaya. Wanda nodded with a grin. "Good idea," she replied. "And maybe you should check your fish while you're at it too." Kaya yelped. She hurried back toward the kitchen as smoke was beginning to drift from the doorway. Wanda chuckled, her attention going back to the stranger. "Can't have the place stinking like burnt fish now, can we?" she told him. He tried to reply, but nothing came out. The strange man's eyes began to glaze over, as the futility of the situation seemed beyond his comprehension. But Wanda watched him closely, as something caught her attention. There was something odd about the way he looked at her. He did not appear to be scared or in disbelief for what had happened to him. And when their eyes met, it was as if he knew who she was. This made Wanda extremely curious. She knew for certain that she had never seen him before in her life. A minute went by. Kaya returned with the glass of water. She handed it to Wanda, who, in turn, drank most of it. Kaya watched her, not quite believing what she did. "I thought it was for him," she asked, glancing down at the man who had ultimately passed out from exhaustion. "Hey, you didn't have to drag him 2 miles through the woods now, did you?" Wanda sharply replied. "He'll be all right. Maybe when he wakes up, we can figure out just where he came from." Kaya shook her head in mild annoyance as she started to pity the man. Her thoughts began to ponder Wanda's words, coming to the sudden realization that he would be stuck here, just like the rest of them. "Well, dinner will be ready in a few minutes," reminded Kaya. "If we're lucky, Ree's probably asleep." The two giggled for a second before Kaya headed back toward the kitchen. Wanda turned her gaze to the sleeping form on the couch. Her concern for him was growing. She found it most disturbing that he knew who she was. That, plus the convenient fact that she found him on a path that she frequented, made for something beyond just coincidence. Wanda thought about the spies that were sent out against her long ago from the Institute. However, he did not look like any of those goons she had found in the intricate traps she laid out for them. She put her hand up to her chin, her other arm supporting it, as Wanda found herself deep in thought. "No doubt about it," she said out loud. "You are the strangest thing to happen to me in quite a long time." Her mind wandered back to her teaching days, even further back when she did research with the Royal Altarian Science Department on her home planet. But before that, she could not quite remember. It was long ago as far as she was concerned, too long for anything that she would have even cared to recall. It was always a motto of hers to live in the now, and never the past. The past was only there to tell you what not to do now. She tried hard not to dwell on it too much. Just thinking about those years started to make her feel old and frail. Or was it because her sore muscles reminded her of the weight she had to carry throughout the woods? Wanda shrugged, at least content for now about the situation. He was not going anywhere anytime soon. Patting herself on the shoulder for a job well done, Wanda turned and started walking toward the kitchen for a well-earned dinner.